My name's Willing Phillips. I've been involved with consulting at the strategic level to organizations from the largest Fortune 500s and some of the largest museums in the world to very small businesses that do $1 million or $5 million of revenue a year. I have worked in 34 different industries, and over again, one of the areas that comes up is the issue of leadership. Some people find it easier than others. What I'd like to touch on here is preferences, 5 preferences that just about every leader makes, often unconsciously. And by being aware of these 5, you may choose to shift which end of the spectrum that you're on in the way that you make decisions and also in the way that you lead in general. The first preference is, do you prefer secrecy or accountability? In other words, having your decisions be accountable to those around you who will see how well the decisions are working or not working, or whether you would prefer secrecy so people don't know the decisions. There's a little place about this far in where it's not complete secrecy, it's a time secrecy. I will make the decision and then I'll announce it. So I'm perfectly happy to be accountable on the decision, but I'm going to announce it after I've already made it. And so that undermines what we've talked about earlier about building commitment. The second fatal preference that people make is whether they want to have a position of authority or engagement. Authority means that I have the answers. In fact, I have all the answers. And in fact, I have answers to questions you haven't even asked because I am the authority. Or do you want to engage with people and listen to what their thoughts are and to listen to your customers' needs and to take more into account? Or do you want to be the authority? Every one of us falls on that spectrum, and sometimes we slide back and forth. The third fatal preference that people choose is whether you want comfort on this end or critique on this end. Comfort means that when you make a decision, after you've announced it, you leave the room. Critique means after you've formulated a decision, you meet with the people that have to implement it and the ones that it's likely to impact. And you say, I've made a draft decision, but before I finalize it, I'd like to get your input on whether you have any questions. It's good to write them down, and then I'll answer them all at once. And after people stop writing, you now say, does anyone have any doubts about this decision? If you do, please write them down and just make a note to yourself. We'll come back and I'm going to answer those. Next, does anybody have any disagreements? If so, please make a note. And when people have generally stopped writing, you now go on to the last of these 4 questions. Does anybody have any additions? Any ways that you could enhance this decision? I call this QDDA. Questions, doubts, disagreements, and additions. With those, you will find out how to accommodate your draft decision into a final decision that has commitment from all the people who were involved in that process. There's a highly powerful process to implement and to build a commitment among those 2 groups that are critical. But only if you're willing to be a little uncomfortable. Being right over being curious. Some of us, sometimes myself included, I like to be right. And certainly when I say, here's the way we could do it, and I give you my answer, I really want that to be the right answer. And by wanting it to be right, I kind of destroy any curiosity into something deeper or more sophisticated or more powerful or closer to the root cause of the issue. One CEO of the Mint Museum in Charlotte, North Carolina said to me once, the best decisions our management team has ever made occur when we walk out of the meeting with a decision that I hadn't even thought of when I walked into the meeting. And it only happened because I was curious to find out their ideas and their thinking, and I was not rigid on being in control of everything and being right. The last fatal preference is this. It's the binary over the spectrum. Binary means it's yes or no, black or white, decision A or decision B. Over here, it's a spectrum. Because a spectrum has so many points on it, so many gray spots, it's a little harder to deal with. It's a little more difficult. It's more confusing and ambiguous. So what we often do is squeeze that spectrum into two choices, yes or no. And somehow we think that if we can get a yes or no, right or left, up or down, black or white decision, that we've got a good decision because we didn't choose the other one. But in most cases, binary decisions lead you to faulty thinking. There may be times when yes or no is good. I grew up with light switches that were yes or no, but now I have spectrum light switches that give me more accurate lighting for what I want. So bear these 5 fatal preferences in mind and choose for yourself whether you want to move further to the left or right on each of these. First one is secrecy over accountability. The second one is authority over engagement. The third one is comfort over critique. The fourth one is being right versus curiosity. And the last one is binary versus spectrum. So there are fatal ends of this spectrum where if you hang out there, you will have many bad decisions and you'll have many poorly implemented decisions.